Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's B from Kongs or Russ, and welcome to The Next Level. This is my weekly podcast show where I bring you next level projects, guests, community members that I believe are truly next level. And this show is going to be off the hook because, you know, I am a Kong and I've always been obsessed with a certain Kong in the video game world, if you will, the Donkey Kong, the king of Kongs. And myself, unfortunately, I do not own a Donkey Kong cabinet, but the Nintendo cab shape, everything that it envisions or it really encompasses from having a home arcade is a dream for many people to own a Donkey Kong arcade. And so I brought together a couple of guests that took it into their own hands. They took this dream of having DK in their house and went several different routes to get there. So I have RetroRalph here, TheRexerShow is coming out of streaming retirement to join me, and a community member, Dags, that's going to be here talking about all things DK. So I'm going to bring them on one by one to talk a little bit about their versions of Donkey Kong, what they did, and also get into how can we as community retro arcade homeowners potentially get a DK in our houses. What is it going to take for me to get a DK in my house? Am I ever actually going to get one from Arcade1Up, or do I have to go several options to get there? So first off, let's say hello to the chat. I want to say thank you to some folks here that have always been here. Maj and Ian, I see Zohar in the chat. I see To Die For, Sonic Fun, Nick Madsen's here, Rubicon Alpha, Adam Kalb, the Swole Dad Pitbull. How's it going, everybody? Thank you guys for being here. If you have questions or anything else, please put it into chat as well. But let's bring on my first guest here. He put a video out yesterday that was talking about his latest DK update and several other videos too. I think he's a little bit obsessed about Donkey Kong RetroRalph. Is this true for you? Like, is this a new thing where you're now just soaked up into Donkey Kong madness?
I'm kind of obsessed with Nintendo cabinets as a whole. Like, I just love them. They're just so cool looking. I mean, how can you not, no matter what Nintendo game is in, the cabinets themselves just have such an iconic look. And the other thing too, they're super fun and easy to work on because they're not that heavy. You can move them around.
That's good to know. Well, how you doing, cool, man? Thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. But I am obsessed with Donkey Kong. It's like the OG, right? I mean, it's like that. It's just an awesome game to have, and I want to get good.
Yeah, are you learning?
You're gonna. Yeah, Rexer's the man. So like he's get up there on like he's submitting scores and stuff. So
yeah, I definitely have questions for both of you guys on the boards that you're using, because I watched Rexer's video and I saw yours, and you actually got his a board from him, right? So were you using his TKG3 board, the one that he said he wasn't using?
The TKG4 board, which is actually the cocktail board. It was the version that was in the cocktail cabinet.
Okay, well, I'll have to get Rex on so I can ask you more technical questions. But if you guys haven't seen Ralph's video, and I know my channel is way smaller than Ralph's, but go check it out. This was him putting together and working on your DK cab. So, I mean, are you learning a lot while you're doing this too? Is this just all new for you to get it going?
Yes. So one of the things that oh, by the way, if you pause it right there, my button colors are I just realized my button colors are wrong. So
on the actual board itself,
the orange should be on the control panel. The orange should be jump, and the blues should be player 1, player 2. I think I have it wrong. Yeah,
these right
I
here.
gotta fix that. Yeah, the blues should be player 1, player 2. But the thing that's interesting is there's normally a lot of resources for Nintendo parts with Mike's Arcade, that company Mike's Arcade. The problem is they had a fire just recently. I mentioned this in the video, and they lost all their inventory, unfortunately. And it's crazy. Rexer and I were talking about this. They're so instrumental to providing parts for Nintendo cabinets that without them, like, I had to custom make wire harnesses because they normally sell them. So if you bought a Donkey Kong board in a stripped out cab, you could go to them and get everything you need.
Right.
But right now they only have certain parts in stock. So I'm learning a lot because of the state that it was in and how I had to get from like point A to point B. So
yeah, you mean, you were wiring up stuff in the beginning, and I saw that Kim was recording you, right?
She had no faith, by the way. She's like, I asked her, she goes, "There's no way that's gonna work." I was like, dude.
But there you are, you're playing it, it's up and running. So, and do you still have more to do with it at this point? Like, what's the next thing that you need to get done with it?
Yeah, so I called up Rexer the other day. He's been super helpful because he built his own. And I said, dude, how do I mount the board? And he's like, dude, I don't know. We're going to have to figure that out. He's like, you got to come up with some custom way to mount it, because there's this one bracket that I guess no one ever had like a reproduction part for. So I'm going to have to come up with some creative way to mount the PCB on the side, like of the cabinet somewhere, to make it secure.
Let's get Rex on here so we can do some live brainstorming and collaboration. What's going on, Rex? How's it going?
How's everybody doing? It's great to be on Kong's R Us. I love it. I'm back.
You're back live streaming. You pulling you out of retirement. So tell everybody where you've been, and you know, for folks that don't know you, just to do a little quick intro.
Where have I just been taking a break, really, a little bit. I want to do some other things, but one of the things I wanted to do was focus on Donkey Kong over the past, 3 months, right? Once I finished the build and I said, I want to focus, I want to register some scores, and I want to get better. So and you can't do that if you're doing YouTube. And Ralph, it takes away from your game time. And I said, if I want to be good and I want to get a good score and I want to get it registered, I have to focus. But let me say, when Ralph talked about mounting his board, he asked me, I said, dude, I had to build like this janky shelf, and put mine in with some grooves, and then I tie wrapped it, because you would think you just mount it with, like, what were you going to say, right? You just mount it with the the board, PCB,
like motherboard mounts, but
like
you can't.
motherboard mounts. You can't, because it's too many boards tied together. So people watching are probably like, well, just use some feet, and mount it with motherboard feet. You can't.
You can't.
Yeah. So it is challenging to mount it somewhere nice and make it secure, because you don't want it falling. And mine is just on a shelf and tie wrapped to some brackets, and that's all I could do. Because I asked Mike's Arcade, I'm like, hey, sell me the mount bracket. He's like, oh, I don't sell those. I'm like, oh, well, what? He told me what it was, and then he's like, oh, I don't sell them though. And I'm like, great, thanks.
But isn't that crazy, Rex? Because he literally has everything else. Like, you can ask any minute detail you need in a Nintendo cab, he will have it. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
It's true. And to correct Ralph, so let me talk about the boards.
Did I get the TKG
first,
wrong?
You got the one wrong.
Didn't I? Yeah,
the first one they made was my understanding is a TKG2, which technically you would have found in radar scopes. Okay. Then the TKG3 is the cocktail cab board, which is the one I had that I gave to Ralph. It's the same thing. It just went in a cocktail cab. And then the TKG4 is the most recent board, I guess you would say. Now, The reason I had to get a TKG4 was because I called Mike's Arcade and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to register some scores. And he's like, no reputable company will accept your TKG3 scores. And I went, why? And he's like, I don't know. They just want it to be TKG4. So Ralph, probably isn't going to be submitting scores to.
That's what I'm saying. You don't think Ralph is good enough to submit scores? You just gave him your TKG3.
Yeah. If he does, he has to get a TKG4. But hey, at least he set everything up. It's simple plug and play at that point,
And Rexer said something interesting. So my cabinet is an original radar scope, though. So if I wanted to really recreate it the way, I would actually put a TKG2 in it, I think, right? So that's what I would put in it. But anyways, so the history of these cabinets is so crazy when you start buying them, because it's like, it's nuts. It was a radar scope, and Nintendo actually converted it to a Donkey Kong, like before it was even sold to North America. Supposedly the story is there was like a bunch of these, and North American customers were like, we don't want it. We don't want radar scope. So,
if you want to see more of that history, by the way, Rexer did an amazing video about the history of it too. And but first off, Zohar put a super chat because Rexer, we miss you. You need to come back.
Zohar.
So a lot of respect here for Rexer being on the show. But here is Rexer's little video that he put together. Check out his channel, but it has some nice history about what you were just saying, the radar scope. And I really wanted to point to this point in the video where you talk about the history of when this cab got super popular, when the King of Kong came out. And that's when I started really seeing just a surge of people playing, knowing it, the history. And even today, when Arcade1Ups came out, there's just been a big boom of this cab being very popular. So what do you guys think is the reason for the popularity of this cab beyond just being a Nintendo cab? Any thoughts?
Who do you want to go first?
I'll talk first, I guess. It's interesting because obviously the King of Kong movie came out in 2007, but it really didn't pick up, too much steam until recently. And it could be, and I hate to say it, because of Arcade1Up and the 3/4 scale has brought more life to the. I might be wrong, but it just seems like over the past 4 years, the retro arcade, family has grown, and people have loved it more now. They loved it before, but now it became accessible, and now they're like, well, what's missing? Oh, well, the Donkey Kong is the only thing that's really missing.
How about you, Ralph? Any thoughts? I think the one thing that's kind of interesting about Donkey Kong is that we have the luxury of getting all these systems with like thousands and thousands of games on them, right? But Donkey Kong, if you have the focus on just that game, it's a really difficult game. And I think it's one of those things where if the popularity of the older retro games, I think, is starting to take hold because people want to like learn something. They want to get good at a certain game. And I think when you have like a lot of games, when you're like my son, he doesn't stay hooked on one game for that long. I think if you can really dive into retro games and sort of go, look, I'm going to like take these 5 and I want to get as good as I can at them. Donkey Kong's such a good one because there's some skill involved, but then there's also a lot of like randomness. So I'm having a blast, and I haven't even got to the point where I'm going to pick Rexer's brain on strategy. But the one thing that's interesting about the board that I got from him is there's a bug in it that I didn't know about. He told me about it, and I just played with it the other night. Like, You might mention it in your video, don't you?
The voltage bug?
I do. And actually, Josh Gruby in the chat mentioned something about it here. He says, "Can Ralph do the ladder trick?"
Yeah. So you you put Mario on the ladder, right? And you put one of his hands on the girdle, I guess that's what you'd call that, right?
Girder.
Yeah, the girdle.
Girder.
Yeah. No, girdle. Wait. Garter. You put it on the garter? No. So when you have your hand there, no barrels will ever hit you. You can just sit there forever. Yeah. I tried it last night. It's weird, but
it is weird. So here's what I think happened with that, and I'll try and explain the programming logic in the game. This is a little more technical for game knowledge, but I think in the beginning when they did this, and Ralph, and just so everybody knows, I sent Ralph the updated ROMs with it, and I told him, change out the ROMs, Ralph. I said, don't play with the cheat trick. So he has the ability to change out his ROMs and get rid of that.
He's exposing my laziness right now. You have to you have to deconstruct this sandwich of boards to get to the chips, but I will do it eventually.
So I here's what I think what happened is, in the game, if you're on a girder on the barrel board, a barrel will never go down before it gets to you, okay? So it will always go through to you if you're on the same girder. So what I think happened in the beginning is the programming was if Mario or Jumpman is touching a girder, the barrels will always travel all the way to the end. And what happened is when your hands are on that girder, the PCB logic is, oh, Mario's on that girder, don't go down a ladder. So they had to change the programming and go, oh, he has to be above the girder on the same girder for the barrels to go down. So if he's below you, the barrels will still fall down on you, because once he was touching that girder, it was like it thought that he was standing on that girder, and they will never go down that ladder. If that makes sense to DK players, that would make sense.
Yeah, because if you're actually on that girder itself, whether it's a hand or a foot, then the barrels kind of act in that same way.
It's zeros and ones, always go through you, and you'll have to jump over them. They'll never go down a ladder before they get to you if you're on the same girder.
So much strategy involved in there, but we're not there. We're just at the place where we're building it and getting in our house, and that's, for me, that's part of it. Is just the look. One, right? Yeah. Having it to be able to play it and get good at. And to your point, Ralph, it's so simplistic to play, but it's so hard to master. Even my son, who's 9 years old, is starting to play it and was like, I like this game because it's simple to get there. I can get to the top of the stage, but to score points and to continue there, I saw some people in chat that were playing themselves and really getting close to kill screens. And so that getting good portion of it is pretty fascinating. And Rex, you are getting close to being on an official scoreboard somewhere?
Well, yeah, I just submitted one of my scores. I've never submitted my scores to the forum. Okay. I've always had a score that would register in the top 200 or something, but now I just had a pretty good score, a 780,000. And
that's crazy good, dude. I can't believe that you were like all nonchalant about it on the phone the other day. 780.
Yeah, well, it's 780,600. It's I was two levels, about 2.5 levels away from the kill screen. My thing is kill screen or bust. Until I get the kill screen, I really didn't care about submitting a score. So right now, and now granted, when you submit a score, it's by person. Each person gets one score. Mm-hmm. So I would be about the 125th person on the leaderboard, and that's MAME and arcade. So if it was just arcade, I'd be higher, I think. But
interesting.
I was looking at Twin Galaxies. It's crazy how far they break things down when it comes to scores. Like they'll have Donkey Kong on every platform. Like not just arcade. It's like everything. Whatever platform Donkey Kong existed on, you can have the high score on that platform.
Good. We got a little super chat here from P-Dubs Arcade Loft that says, "TheRexerShow, return to your YouTube bribery funds."
It may happen. I may come back. Guess the one-time appearance for the TheRexerShow YouTube podcast.
Well, thank you so much for coming back, Rex, to talk about Donkey Kong. But this was a somewhat of a last-minute topic because I was working on something else, and I was like, I saw Ralph's video, and I just remember watching Rex's video. And then I also, throughout my time across all the home arcade forums, have always come across tons of custom Donkey Kong arcades because there's such a love for it. So this guy, who I'm going to bring on next as my last guest, his name is Alan Dags, to the show, put together his own 3/4 scale version of Donkey Kong that I absolutely love. So I invited Alan to come on here to talk because he made his own version of it, which I think is fantastic for all those that love our 3/4 home arcade market. So what's going on, Dags? How's it going?
Hey, B, how's it going? Nice to meet you guys. Finally in
Yeah.
person or on a virtual person. I'm not just watching your show. I'm on a show with you. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'll be a little starstruck for a while because you guys are legends. And
Well, you shouldn't, Dags, because Dags was the first person I ever had on my Next Level show, by the way. I'm on episode 28.
Oh, wow.
So I started this in January. So Alan was the first person I brought in because he created a Star Wars cockpit cab, a replica, and we worked together to put together my kit in his Star Wars arcade. So he has an amazing arcade. We did a little tour. So Alan, you're no stranger to the show. You absolutely belong here. But I mean, what's your kind of fascination with Donkey Kong, and why did you go the route you did for making a custom 3/4 scale arcade?
so it's kind of two answers to that question. The first one is I did it because obviously it was the holy grail from an Arcade1Up community perspective. Everybody was clamoring. So I did it more, and I think I showed you the kind of the post that I did over on the Canadian Arcade1Up forum in the Facebook group. And it basically said, this is what Arcade1Up should be doing. This is how you should do it. So I could have obviously built the full-scale cab. Clearly, I've built them in the past. But it was more like I am going to do what Arcade1Up should have did, and I built it to 3/4 scale to exact. And, you know, from the outside perspective, everything is 100%. Obviously, from the inside, I'm not going to say because Rexer is going to get upset. And,
we can see it. We know what it is.
Ralph can't say anything, so he's been on all the spectrums, so he's fine. No, but honestly, for me, B, you know this, like my game room, my nostalgia for it, and guys, a lot of you guys talk about this on your show. You know, a lot of this has brought you know, new people to the arcade genre. This, to me, it was. Like prior to this, I had full size arcade. I've been dealing in full size arcade my whole life, or not my whole life, but a large portion of it when it had money and accessible to do so. To get some, I have very lucky to have family people in my family, like my cousin who's brilliant at repairing boards. Ralph,
Cool.
He's a whiz at doing this. He's an engineer.
I got to get his number then when mine breaks down.
He's very, very good. So he's obviously an engineer, so he does architectural design, so we can AutoCAD all these things. He's a purist. I mean, 100% crazy purist. So he has a full arcade with all your classics in it, and including the Star Wars cockpit, as V was talking about. And so then I had the chance of owning the originals. And then this is kind of the opposite story of everybody has been talking about, because I had everything and I got rid of everything to go 3/4 scale because I'm a lot older. I'm a lot tired of repairing. I'm tired of lugging things around. Yeah, that's the design there. We did,
awesome.
did on the scale. And he has the original Donkey Kong, so we scaled that. You know, he scaled it to 100.
So yeah, Dag sent me all these pictures, and so this is not something that he bought from Game Solutions or Place. He literally recreated this in 3/4 scale. So the work that was put into this is what impressed me, right? So taking that idea, that passion of putting this, and Rex, you did this as well, but you did yours full scale, right? So think about both of you and the process of seeing this, Rex, because I'd love your opinion on this. But this is just some of the pics that Dag sent me of his build process, and again, I just have such respect for him putting this together. Cool. And then the ultimate outcome, again, at 3/4 scale, you had to design even your own riser for it, right? So the riser is something that's not into scale, but is the height wise, where does it sit with the other Arcade1Ups? Is it a little bit higher? Did you have to do any adjustments?
No, so I have it in 3 different sections, right? Obviously you have the 3/4 scale cabinet, and this is for Rexer. I do have the pedestal built in the cabinet as the original Donkey Kong. It's in there, so if you take it up, you'll see it. I built the normal size 13-inch riser that we had. That fits for my boy. He loves playing at that, the height. He's 9 years old. But what happened is because obviously just the same thing we're seeing so much with Arcade1Up on that viewing angle between the monitor kind of bezel area to the marquee, that if you want to keep the CP at the right height, you're never going to have the proper viewing angle out of 5'8", 5'9", 6 foot person. So and you have to like basically do what they did with Big Blue, stretch that upper body part, which it looks ridiculous. Yeah. So I didn't want to do that because I wanted true 3/4 scale. So as you can see,
it looks like you used did you use a reproduction coin door? That looks like the real coin door, is it?
3D printed, my friend.
Oh, wow. Okay, because I'm like, it looks like it. That's cool.
So that is again what we did is my cousin has the original door. We AutoCAD'd it. Sent it over to George. Sorry, what's his last name?
George Adana.
Adana over in California, V's friend, and he spun those up for me. He's brilliant at what he does.
Yeah, I love the Mario Brothers, but let me say that Nintendo cabs are short to begin with. Now I know I'm tall, but even from a normal standpoint, they're short. So, when you're doing a 3/4 scale, you're kind of, in between, like, well, how do I make sure that it's tall enough, right? Like you were saying, and getting the right viewing angle, because they're short to begin with and that angle's in there, but not make it too tall and skinny. They look great, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you just, like I said, you can't just rise them, because then you're raising the CP level. And if you're a true arcade, like I played the originals 1,000 million times, I can't have the Donkey Kong CP 2 inches higher than it normally is, because it feels foreign to me.
Yes.
It's not going to work.
Exactly right.
Mm-hmm. So it's this one. This is like I'll call it like this is like the phase 1. Like I think I'm going to redo it, but somehow I got to figure out that ratio, but without compromising the look of it.
Yeah.
Well, and I got a question for Dags. Wait, can I first say this? You like Dags, do you? You like Dags? Is that where you get your name from the movie Snatch? Does anybody know that?
No, my last name is Diogenes, so DAGS is just an
Ralph,
acronym
you know that
for my last
movie?
name.
Come on,
I do. I know the
you like
movie.
Dags, do you?
I know, but
anyway.
I was thinking that's not where he got his name from, but
I didn't know.
that's just a weird thing that just popped into your head.
Not that fun.
All right. No, my question was the lower retainer bezel piece. Okay, when I saw the blueprint on how to make that piece, okay, the one, it's extremely difficult. You have to cut it on an angle, and then there's a lip that goes behind that you're supposed to whack the control panel in. Did you have a difficult time with that piece as well? Because I'm not an expert craftsmanship. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know exactly what your problem. We had a big problem. Well, we didn't have a big problem. Is because I got this thing. We got this thing laser cut. So obviously we use a CNC.
Let's see if I can go back.
Oh,
so I have another
right there.
So another friend of mine who helped me in this project. There's a team that did this.
Right there.
Yeah. So basically, that's the exact same measurement, exact same scale as the original one, and we did the CNC cut.
Yeah. That piece is that is right above the control panel that goes across, is the most difficult piece to make on the whole thing. And if you're thinking of building your own, I kind of had to rig it up a little bit from the normal blueprint, but I cut it on an angle. It's a very difficult piece because you need to cut a groove for the plexiglass and it slides in. It's a very difficult piece to do.
The problem I had with that, Rexer, is so we were able to do the correct groove and to scale as the original, but I can't get the brackets under the CP because of that opening. That square opening, there's nowhere for me, and I don't have a coin door to get the access to it.
So access to the snaps,
it's actually screwed from underneath, from the backside. So I cannot easily take the CP off if I want to. I have to open the back door, go down underneath, and take 2 screws out that I put in.
Yeah, and the other part that's very difficult is the speaker panel. I had a lot of trouble with the speaker panel. That right there. That is tough to get those grooves in there when you don't have the right equipment, and I don't.
Were you just routing it out by hand?
Yeah, I had a router, and I put 2 boards. I clamped 2 boards to keep a straight line, and I plunged it, and I slid it along. And you have to be so steady, because if you jag it, then your whole So So this is Rexer's video, by the way, if you haven't checked it out. But he again did a full-on replica from the blueprints and made it full scale, guys. And this is from scratch, 100%, right? Like you bought the wood, everything, did the routing. So I mean, kudos to you putting this together. I bought the control panel. I say in the video, the control panel is just too hard, in my opinion, to do. A great replica on it. But other than that, everything's pretty much from scratch, pieced together. And again, my difference is I did use an LCD monitor. Now I know a lot of RetroRalphs aren't enthusiastic about LCDs, but I'm trying to get them on board with them.
I'm pausing this for you, Ralph, right here.
They're all going to end up there anyways, whether they like it or not.
Yeah,
it's going to give inevitable.
That's what I'm talking about, right? That's kind of a temporary thing I did, but it's kind of the same thing. I got it resting on a shelf. I used just
that actually is pretty clever compared to I'm gonna have to do something.
It's
like
on a shelf with some brackets around it to hold it in there, and then I just I told you I rigged it.
Like what is this? Is that like an elastic rope?
That's a bungee cord, like a mini bungee cord holding it down so it doesn't fall. I mean, it's not like this right now, but that was kind of how I first had to do it, because I didn't know how to, keep it in there right. So.
Question
the
for
LCD CRT conversation is interesting though. Like now that I've dove really deep into CRTs, and it's interesting. Like some people would just assume that CRTs are dead sometimes. Like that Killer Instinct restoration I'm doing, the colors were just not vibrant, and I did a cap kit to it, and I'm like, there's something I'm missing. something's not right. So there's a whole, like, if you want to go deep, there's this thing called the CRT Rejuvenator, where you can hook it up to your CRT, and it kind of like, I don't know what it technically is doing. It's almost like blasting a layer of you might know, Dags, how to technically explain it, but it like almost blasts the guns, so it actually would take some life off of it. But when I powered it back on, it was like it was brand new. It was the craziest. It went from like I can't see it to holy shit. Sorry, kids show. It was like, dude, it was like all of a sudden you know how people make fun of the bilinear filter on Arcade1Up, like it being fuzzy. It was like I could see all of a sudden. It's amazing. So you can keep extending the life out of CRTs, but yes, eventually there's like nothing you can do. After a while, it's going to be dead.
The best part is I noticed, like, because we have a lot in our area, like there's a whole big large group of the arcade enthusiasts, like the purists and stuff, and it's amazing how some people who are not really educated, who maybe buy them and are not and as soon as the monitor dies, they're like, I don't want nothing.
Yeah, they'll like throw it away.
And like you mentioned, like doing the cap kit, like that is 80% like gets rid of like 80% of the problems, and nobody has, like, there's a lot of people who don't have any clue about that, right? And they're just like, it's dead, I'm throwing it out. Like we've got so many monitors that we just run cap kits right through them, and it's like all of a sudden we got 25 monitors ready to go. Like it's insane.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I think some people don't know too that you can mail them in, right? And people say, well, go get it fixed. They like think you have to take out the whole monitor and send them the whole monitor or something. No, you just send them the chassis and get it recapped, you know? Yeah. So if you're thinking about, you know, buying an arcade and you go out there and buy a used one and it's got some CRT issues, don't think like you have to pull out the whole thing and send the whole monitor and tube, you know, to somebody to fix. That's not how it works, you know?
But Rex, you actually put an LCD in yours too, right? That worked with the PCB board. So what was this person asked? Is there a CRT to LCD conversion kit, or is that what you did? Which is
well, Mike's Arcade makes a specific. They call it an LCD replacement monitor with a conversion board and a controller board. So it ties right into the normal harness with this conversion board, I guess you'd call it. Is that what they call it, the conversion board? And it just plugs right into that board on the back of the LCD monitor. And then there's a controller board that controls all your settings, your brightness, your focus, you know, your sharpness, you know, horizontal position, vertical position, you know, the pots that you'd find on a CRT, the controller board is with the monitor as well.
Now, is that different than kind of the big hype on the Unico ratio 5:4 monitor that's coming out? Because it's just a smaller screen and this is just a bigger version?
Well, the one that I have is a 19-inch because that's
the 19-inch. Oh, okay.
That's what Donkey Kong was, and I don't know. Ralph knows a little bit more about what people are selling, but 5:4 ratio is not what they're 4:3. You know, set vertically. So I'm not so sure why, you know, a 5:4 LCD monitor is a good idea because arcades didn't come.
Yeah, the 5:4 is throwing me for a loop. Why they decided on that and not 4:3, considering you'd be way more compatible with arcade hardware going 4:3. But in effect, what Mike's Arcade thing does is what Unico's designed, because the thing that's unique is just like, you know, everyone that mods Arcade1Ups, they put that board on so you can plug in an HDMI connection to it, right?
Yep.
This converter board's just allowing you to take the native RGB signal from an arcade cabinet, and I'm looking at you and not my camera. I'm like, hey, B, I'm looking at you.
But, I do that too.
Yeah, it's just so now I can natively plug it in. It's actually kind of, it is pretty smart to do it that way because it does make it easier for someone that is going to do that conversion, because the other way to do it, you need like a separate board. And so what Unico is trying to do, or at least what I've seen, is the converter board's integrated into the actual model. So it's like, instead of having like a converter board outside, it's inside the actual. It's the same essentially, but it's packaged in an easier way to use it, basically.
Nice. Those are going to be really cool to see how that. And there's been some hype for it on replacing the size of it. But so you're saying the 5:4 monitor may not fit because of the ratio?
Well, if the software knows it's a 4:3 signal, it should put bars on it. So if it doesn't though, then it would stretch it or something, and then it probably wouldn't look right.
Yeah,
you'd get like shimmering and all sorts of weird effects that if you're anal, you'll hate. Like, because once someone tells you, it's those things, right? Like no one tells you, and then someone goes, "Hey, did you notice this?" And then that's all you see.
Ralph, there was a question in the chat. Tell them about Sanyo Easy 20 CRT monitors, because I was close to getting one.
That's the one that you put in your cab, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so dude, they're really hard to find. So first of all, if you need one, it's like if you see one, you should just get it. Like if you want to go the CRT route and you were going to build a Donkey Kong and someone had one for sale, I would grab it right away. Cuz when they're available, people grab them immediately. And those cabinets were designed that there was like mounting systems inside the cabinets that are the exact same as that monitor. So it fits perfectly. It uses a different voltage. It uses 110 volts instead of 120 volts. So if you want to plug it into the native power, you kind of need the Sanyo monitor. There's also a lot of other weird things like, I'm trying to think. So like for instance, I called Rex the other day and I'm like, dude, I can't figure out how to mount this. And there's like this weird board that's slanted on the back. And I couldn't figure out what that board was there for. And I watched this guy, this crazy YouTube video where this guy's got a headlamp on and he's working on his Donkey Kong in his basement with his headlamp. And he's like, oh, I use that board to rest the monitor on so I can fix the mounting system and then screw it in. Now, I couldn't find a video anywhere about this. But had I not come across this guy's video, I wouldn't have known that, oh, hey, I could just rest it on this. Now, if that's for that, I have no idea. But anyways, long story short, the monitors are awesome. They're just really hard to find. And so, and again, like what Dags says, a lot of them just need cap kits. Like, so a lot of them are just getting older. So providing the arcade owner didn't leave the arcade on forever, then and the screen doesn't have any burn in, then usually you can fix the majority of issues by just doing a cap kit, which sounds really complicated, but with a little bit of know-how and just it's not that bad. Because I'm not someone I would consider like an expert at soldering or desoldering, and I've picked it up pretty quickly. So
what I'm really curious about, because all three of you went very different methods to get to where you're at, from Dags making the 3/4 scale from scratch, Rexer doing the full scale, and then Ralph doing a restoration from a radar scope, right? So price point for people, some people are asking about the cost for everything. Do each of you have an idea of what you've put so far into your cab? So I'll start with Dags and then I'll end with Ralph. So Dags, from your 3/4 scale cab build from scratch, what would you say your ballpark cost to put that together was?
Without labor, probably we're looking at about maybe $550.
That's great. And just parts alone, plus and it includes artwork and everything too.
That's everything. That's just without the labor part.
Yeah, without the labor.
Thank goodness there's not much art on a Nintendo.
That's true. That's true. Just the baby blue, the slab on it.
And
that's
I painted
great,
everything myself. I didn't use the vinyl. I know there's a lot of people that like to use the vinyl, but I did find the right chip colors from the arcade cabinet.
So Rex, I mean, Today For is asking what's the average price for just the PCB, because you've gotten a couple of these. So what was the price for that? Then everything else that you put together.
So I have three. Well, I had three. I gave Ralph one. Donkey Kong boards. I think I paid $250, $300, and $300 for each of them.
The boards.
Yeah, for the boards. But that's the big, and there are more now. I mean, I would think that recently that you probably won't find one for less than $350, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I haven't shopped for them. But that and the LCD arcade replacement monitor were the two main expenses. That was $300 plus tax as well. Wow. So once you start putting those two together, you're already at $650, $700 on mine. Probably $1,200 I was all in at, not including labor, obviously. But, when you start talking about wood, I use laminate. That's another $100 in laminate, and a nice red laminate. A little artwork was cheap, just the stickers, but the control panel was also $150 brand new, which I did not do that. So I added all up about $1,200. But the thing that the reason I did this instead of buying a used one, now Ralph knows, and I'm sure Dags knows, you can go on auctions and buy Donkey Kongs. There's no question, and you're probably it's gonna go between $1,000 and $1,800 probably. But you don't know what shape you're getting. You don't know what you're really getting with it. What's wrong with the CRT? What's wrong with the outer look? Is it dented? Isn't damaged? So the reason I went like this, I said, I want a brand new one. And just like Dags and when you look at this thing, it looks like it just came off the production line. And that's that if you know that, and I couldn't get a radar scope like Ralph. I was never going to find a red one, and I wanted a red one. So if I was going to do that, I would have had to take a blue one and then, you know, kind of paint it red or and then it wouldn't have been the same to me, you know. So that's the only reason I went my route.
I'm the same way, because I bought so many cabinets, like, and you hear about the rat poop and the piss and the smell and the cigarette burns. And I have friends who like, the cigarette burns are part of the experience. I'm like, no, they're not for me. They're not. I don't want cigarette burns on my control panel. So my first cabinet was a Galaga, and I built that to scale 100%. And it's just like you said, Rexer, it's just having that beautiful, shiny, nobody else has touched it. Nobody else has dented it. And that's how I like my arcade.
All right, Ralph, how about your route? I mean, so you actually went and bought the radar scope with the intention of making this a DK, or I know you changed your mind like this.
It's really weird. It was completely on a whim. I went on OfferUp. And by the way, you're putting me on the spot a little bit because Rexer and I haven't actually talked about how much he wants for the board yet. So I don't know the total cost.
We'll probably just swap with that the GPU, the graphics you gave.
Well,
me.
the funny thing is he was I'll tell you a really quick 2-second story. So he sent me the board, and then a couple days after, he was talking to me about how his virtual pinball machine wasn't working good because of the GPU that was in it. And I was like, dude, I have like a GPU. I think it was like a 1060, or I can't remember. I was like, I have one that's unopened. Do you want it? So I shipped it to him. So I'm kind of hoping we sort of have a delta. Just pay the delta or something. But
we're helping each other out. That's what it matters.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Exactly.
So check out how this went down. I went on OfferUp. I saw a versus Super Mario Brothers cabinet. So that was it was a radar scope that Nintendo converted to a Donkey Kong that someone converted to a Super Mario Brothers. So that's how I saw it. And I knew the guy because I'd sold to him before. And I said, hey, would you consider a trade for the Donkey Kong? And he goes, what do you have? And Neo Geo is one of those things where I like it, but like, you can just get Neo Geos. They must have made like a zillion Neo Geo cabinets. You can just get them everywhere. So I was like, I got to force a 2-slot Neo Geo. He's like, dude, I'll trade you for the Neo Geo. So to me, that was like a no-brainer because all I saw was red radar scope. Like, this is going to be awesome converted to a Donkey Kong. So that's how I got it. But I didn't realize how much work I was going to have to make it a Donkey Kong. Because I didn't have a Donkey Kong control panel. I didn't have the PCB. The monitor was messed up. So like, it took a while to get there. And surprisingly, the smell part, this cabinet doesn't smell. I don't know why. Most of them do. Like, most of them have like nasty smells that you got to get rid of by all sorts of different ways you can do it. But this one, it doesn't smell bad. So it's going to go in my house eventually. But it was a process getting it. And want to know something really cool? This goes to show how cool the community is. Someone messaged me on Facebook Messenger and went, I just watched your video. And I looked on Craigslist and someone's selling a Donkey Kong control panel. You should get it. And I was like, holy crap. So I went to the listing and sure enough, like I went that weekend and picked up the Donkey Kong control panel. But if you try to find one, like go on eBay right now and look up Donkey Kong control panel. I'd be surprised if you find one Donkey Kong control panel. They're like non-existent right now. So parts are hard to get.
It's a popular game. What can I say? I mean, we've been talking about for 40 minutes or so. And the last part of this show I really wanted to show you was what the community is doing to make their own Donkey Kong cabs. So I wanted to show you this quick snippet of a video where I crazily stalked all the Facebook groups that I'm in because every time I'm there, I think I see one of these customs there and they always get tons of interaction. So here's the list of all the different Arcade1Up or custom Donkey Kongs that existed. And I want to get your thoughts on potentially how people have brought this into their home. So let's check this out. So here is, again, just a few different versions. Barrelcades, right? People getting really creative. I thought these are really cool. And these are your typical Arcade1Up versions that you would see with this typical skin and putting a pie inside of it. Some people going very simplistic, multi-cades, but there's a lot of them. So I'm curious if there's any favorites that you guys have seen over the time, if you've seen these. But I'm curious to get your thoughts on these. And then different style art, right? It's not just the traditional art with the thing going all crazy with this. And if you like the song in the beginning, by the way, that's from a guy named Vector U, who also did this remix. I love my video game remixes. So this is DK Jungle Japes. I really like this front panel, by the way, from Melinda. That was awesome. So yeah, that was just a little snippet of all the different versions of Arcade1Up 1. So any thoughts on that,
nice.
Ralph? When you see those, a lot of those are in your home arcade modding groups.
Yeah, I mean they're really creative. I mean, people. That's the thing that's been so neat. You know when and I don't know how the hobby's going to change because everyone was buying up these like cheap Arcade1Up cabinets and they were doing all these creative things with them, but their cost of entry was like, oh, for $300 if I can get the cabinet or cheaper or 75 or whatever,
You
like
can make whatever you want.
Yeah, they would be like, cool. My budget now is like $600 in parts and stuff, so you can do amazing things with that. There's two interesting aspects. It's the artwork, like the fact that people are going and making some different artwork and stuff that's creative and different. But yeah, I mean, it's people love Donkey Kong, man. I think I don't know how Arcade1Up or any of these companies will figure out a way to negotiate with Nintendo, but if they do and they do it right, like look at the coin door on Dags's thing. Now, if Arcade1Up wanted to 3D print a coin door that looked like that looks like the real coin door. They can do it right if they try, if they put the effort into it. Now, if they do it and they half-ass it, that would be disappointing.
They'll probably put KRAZY Kong in it instead of Donkey Kong. They'll put KRAZY Kong in it.
It's almost like they have the license, but they're being told you can't 100 replicate because look at all the cabinets. There's always the one little thing. Like the Tempest cabinet was pretty nice, but they didn't do the bezel, they didn't do the CP right. Like there's always this one little thing that's just I'm a fan. I want to be a fan, but they anger me sometimes. I'm like, why you hurt me? And that was why I did what I did. Right? It's like this is how you're supposed to, because they're always going to do something that's just shy of the mark.
Do you think that Nintendo, here's an interesting question. Do you think that Nintendo, if they say, yes, you can go ahead and do it, we give you authorization, do you think that Nintendo would allow them to half-ass it?
No.
I don't think they would. No. I think they'd be like, you better bring it.
This would be no different than the pinball deal they did with the Star Wars stuff and the Star Wars cabinet. There was too much. That was the best cabinet. We said, right, the Star Wars cabinet was the best cabinet they made from a reproduction standpoint for a 3/4 scale toy. And that's because Disney was all over that. Like they're saying, you are not going to mess with our brand, and that's why Nintendo won't do it to anybody. I think Nintendo's going to do it themselves at some point, or they're going to, like you said, they're going to hire somebody to manufacture, but it's going to be a Nintendo product.
Yeah, right.
There is an interesting story about KRAZY Kong though. Back in the day, I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. I saw Glen mentioning something about KRAZY Kong, that Nintendo gave the license to Falcon or something like that. To do KRAZY Kong, which is almost an exact replica of Donkey Kong. Then they pulled it from them because they did something wrong, like sold it to other countries instead of just Japan. I'm sure Glenn would know this story, but it's just interesting the way Nintendo works as a whole, you know. But never get KRAZY Kong. If somebody puts KRAZY Kong and says it's just like Donkey Kong, don't buy that board. It's not just like Donkey Kong. It is, but it's different.
So for folks that don't know the history of at least Arcade1Up trying to get this, they've been trying at least at some point over the last couple of years to hint that this could be a possibility. Glenn was in the chat, and I don't know if you guys remember this picture from 2018 where there was a list of what arcade would you like to see next from Arcade1Up, and I'm going to make this full screen so you guys can see it. And look at this list on the right where every single one of these arcades were made, except for Karate Champ. It's on another cab, but we've not seen a Donkey Kong or an NFL Blitz. And this was a real survey that was done in 2018. And I found this while I was searching. I was like, oh, how cool that they actually put this on here. And we saw everything else come to fruition out finally 3 years later. So seeing this list, I don't know if you guys ever remembered it. Like, what do you guys think about then versus now? Is it still a possibility that this was on their potential roadmap at some point?
I think you can't tell me that there wasn't a meeting at some point where they go, give us the wish list. And I bet I can just picture them going, pull up the top 50 arcade games of all time. We're going to make all of those. Like someone that like they're that bold. Because if you look at it, that top 50 list, they basically are making the top 50 list.
Yeah.
Everything they make is on that list.
And then
I think either David McIntosh or it was one of them from Arcade1Up. They did one of the videos, either CS. They said, we call them all the time. If somebody knows a person that will pick up our phone call, please let us know because we're constantly calling Nintendo.
It's funny that you say that because I have that clip right here, but I wanted to also tease.
I don't know who said it, man.
It's okay, but this was an April Fool's joke, right? That came out last year when they were teasing, hey, this is a potential shaped cab that we can have. So, I mean, there's all these teasers. And to your point, Dags, I'm going to play this clip from CES 2020. And Ralph doesn't remember this at all, but Justin was filming. And he was asking, it's really hard to hear, but he teased up David McIntosh, the director of marketing, and asked, hey, there's a mini DK cab in the background. What is this? So let's hear David's reaction at the time, January 2020, about DK and the licensing. So here it is.
So the miniature version, is that real? That, honestly, being fully transparent, shouldn't be displayed right now. That's
someone from Nintendo's gonna drop from the ceiling and like.
No, like I don't know. We shouldn't. We turned that off for a reason. I think somebody turned it on right before we walked by. We've been trying to get a deal with them for like it's hard. They don't really do a lot of third party. They like to own their IP. That's how they're so strong in today's day and age.
Yeah,
we're working on it, guys. We know what to do.
So we got so excited.
So that was the clip, right?
I don't remember that part. Yeah, I actually don't. That's crazy. I do remember the thing. It was the micro console. It was up on this like little shelf area, but they had a lot of weird stuff on that shelf, by the way.
Sorry, that was in the Arcade1Up booth?
Yeah, but it wasn't a full size. It was
but I thought you guys were referring to a booth across the hall when I originally saw that video.
No, I remember now. It was like an area where they had all these like mini they're like a micro consoles, really small.
And, I remember that little
the little TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was a lot of weird stuff there. Like they had an emulator, they had a Mega Man, and when you turned it on, it played like Castlevania Bloodlines. I'm like, what the hell? And like they kept shutting it off. So
yeah, I didn't know when I said my comment. I didn't know that was the same clip you guys were talking about before. If you didn't remember the clip.
But I mean, that's exactly what it was. So when we're talking about like if we can't get the license for a full size or a 3/4 scale in our homes, then there's all these other options now that exist to create Donkey Kong. So if you are a fan like me that is waiting, and you may not want to wait to continue to have, I don't know where Rex is. Did he make a message saying that he was just gonna like
I don't know, I think
off?
Maybe something must have come up, but
I didn't want to watch. He didn't want to watch Ralph on CES.
The Glen is saying to check my messenger.
Yeah,
for something,
I got a message from Glen too saying to check your messenger. Yeah.
All right. I will pull that up in a second. But I wanted to share other options that people might be thinking about. So if you can't get Arcade1Up to get the 3/4 scale version, then maybe you guys can go these options instead. So here are a couple of different websites that sell sort of replica Donkey Kong kit. So this is the Game Room Solutions kit on here, which is a not the exact shape, right? It's kind of taking. I feel like if Arcade1Up did it, they would do something like this, where the bezel would be
the marquee. Like
yeah,
that's
exactly.
I really don't like this one.
Why did they push that back?
It feels like the Arcade1Up would do.
Yeah, this is like it's like a Game Room Solutions, but we don't want to get sued, so let's just like.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but this kit though, if you're okay with at least the concessions, if Arcade1Up did it, if it looked like this comes with a 19-inch monitor already. This is a multi-cade here because you're putting a Pi in it, and all of this comes to you with any of these designs for the price point of $800. And we know what Arcade1Up is charging at this point for a fully skin cab that looks like DK with a 19-inch screen. Yes, it's a multi-cade, it's not true to scale. Do you find value in this? Is this a good option for people that are looking for a Nintendo cab? Like, I'm just kind of curious from your thoughts as you guys have built your own.
Yeah, what scale is this?
It's a 3/4 scale as well, so it's in their 3/4 scale size.
Then there's concessions on this because then you're making your marquee. Their marquee's actually bezel. Sorry, their bezel art is actually going to be smaller because trust me, I would love to get a 19-inch in that thing, but. The way, if you want to keep the graphics at a true 3/4 scales on the marquee side of it, it'll go beyond the viewing angle will go into the graphics.
Yeah, it looks like they made a lot of like concessions with this, and even it's not recessed as well, but it's an option.
Yeah,
it feels like something Arcade1Up would do, right? It wouldn't have the monitor all the way further back. You wouldn't have that kind of like big effect. Any thoughts on this, Ralph, seeing this? I know you said you didn't like it.
I actually have supported a lot of Ryan's over at Game Room Solutions designs in the past. I really don't like this. Like it's kind of destroying no. I don't like it.
Is that speaker stickers? Oh, they're stickers.
There's
like
stickers
over. I don't know. It's just he's taking.
You can't have two speaker grills. You can't.
He's taking too many.
I'm not a purist, but there's certain things, right?
What does his sticker say? Does it not say Nintendo under Donkey Kong, or does it?
Please don't sue.
It does say Nintendo. Ooh. So Who knows? But there's different artwork you can get. You can get the Donkey Kong Jr. one. You can get a Fix It Felix Jr. version. So he has many versions of kits you can do.
To be honest, though,
mhm.
this looks somewhat better than resticking an Arcade1Up Quick Cutter Gen 1.
Yeah, because you saw the video that I made of people making it. So I mean, it's not close, but yeah,
it gets closer to
it gets
looking
closer.
like a Nintendo cabinet as opposed to just reskinning. That's a positive thing I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, there's Majin E in here who actually got a kit in the chat, by the way. So here's a picture of his kit in his house next to the Star Wars Arcade1Up version of it. So it looks in scale next to everything, and it plays as a multicade. There's a Sailor Moon in the background, but it does actually play DK on the horizontal screen. So I mean, just showing it, this is an actual version of it in somebody's house.
It's a good thing Rexer's not here. He would be like, this would trigger him so hard. You have no idea. I know.
Rexer, Sailor Moon on a Donkey Kong. What do you feel? Tell me how you really feel about this. But I hope he's okay.
Crackball.
Yeah. But that's there. But you did show me something else that might be a good solution for folks too, Ralph. So tell me about this. You sent this to me right before the show for folks that would be looking at putting together a kit. And this is a really beautiful price point. So
this is really cool. So this is if you scroll down a little bit, so you get the cabinet for 400, but they have all the parts. So if you want to make it a Donkey Kong, you got the marquee. That's a similar monitor to what Rexer has in his. It sits on, that's designed to sit on the mounts of that cabinet the way they design it.
Okay.
It has literally everything. If you scroll down, it's got like if you're going to do a multi-cade,
they have
Yeah, they have the insert coin sticker there, which is that decal that goes on the front. It's got the actual bolt, the reproduction bolts and everything. So this could be a cool solution for someone that wants to have it look a little bit more original, you know?
The marquee bezel bar.
Yeah. And this is full size though. So like, again, this is for a replication for 400 again as a bare bones kit. If you're going to be modding anyways at some point, or like if you have a DIY in you, this is a great option. I feel like if you added all this stuff together, it would still be under the retail, or if you bought something from auction, right? We're talking 1,000, 1,600. So,
and I'm pretty sure Arcade Shop also sells a like, let's say someone wanted this, but let's say they're a fan of Donkey Kong. They want the cabinet to look like Donkey Kong, but they still want it to be a multicade. I believe Arcade Shop sells a panel that fits in this that has like more buttons on it. So if someone wants to make it, they like the Donkey Kong, but they don't want it to be just one game, you can do that too. And the other thing that's cool about this is really the Donkey Kong, the Nintendo cabinets are actually fairly easy to move around. Like they're not nearly as tall, and they're not nearly as wide as a normal arcade cabinet would be. So imagine you take the CRT out, because you'd probably put an LCD in here. It'd be really easy to move this around. Not as easy as like an Arcade1Up, but you could definitely move this around in your house if you needed to with a little bit of help. So it's not going to be as cumbersome as like a Killer Instinct cabinet or a Mortal Kombat cabinet or something.
Yeah. Well, cool. I think this is a good option. So for folks that are watching and thinking about something that you might be considering to get DK in my house, this show has been inspiring me to figure out what I want to do. Do I want to go the Dags routes and build my own? Do I want to wait for Arcade1Up to put something together? Do I want to do the $800 game room solutions? Because that seems something like I would do. I would probably do. I'm not as purist, and maybe make it a multi-cade. Maybe not. I would probably do a vertical one just so that it's in scale with everything else. But yeah, this is just giving people options. So hopefully you guys are enjoying everything. What's up,
just challenge Bobby View.
Bobby's been here making.
Can you make that by hand? Yeah. I'm sure he can. Right, you'll jigsaw that right out, and it'll look just as good as my CNC one.
There's a company out of it's on AliExpress. I don't know if they still exist, but what they were doing is they were building replica Donkey Kong cabinets, and they took, I don't know if this is common knowledge or not. It might be. You can take a 60-in-1 board and you basically set it to one game, and it will boot directly into that game. So it'll boot directly into Donkey Kong. You won't, if you didn't know anything different, you'd play it and not know it was a 60-in-1 board, most likely, unless you're like hardcore on the emulation well. If you know the emulation well, then you'd know. But it gives you the illusion. But what they did was, on their control panel, underneath it, you could cut a hole. So they already had a trackball hole there, but you couldn't see it. And all you'd have to do is lift the plexi off, and you'd cut the hole out, and they undermounted the trackball, and you just move it over. And then they even had extra buttons. So if you wanted it to be straight Donkey Kong, you could. And the thing was like, I bought one. I have a video on it a long time ago. It was about $900, but it could play all the 60-in-1 games if you wanted to. But I had it set to just Donkey Kong. It's an old video on my channel, but anyways, it looks, it's not fully authentic, but it's close. Anyway, if someone's interested to see it, it's kind of cool. I went off for too long on that.
No, send me the link to it so I can send it. I think people are looking at this, and I think we're all getting educated on the possibilities of what you can do with these DK machines, whether it's like what you want to do with the 16-1. And Dags, were you saying that you have your setup to do that with your 16-1?
I have the 16-1, but I put I put 3 Donkey Kong games on because there's 3 on the 16-1, so just to have that variety for the kids. But I've done a million times what you said, Ralph. I have so many cabinets that in the interim, if it's the single game, because I'm okay with one game on a cabinet kind of guy. I don't mind multicades, but typically I'm trying to do these single, and I'll always just boot it up on the single game. Like I've bought Game Elves $120 because I'm in Canada temporarily, just so I can have that one game boot up while I'm either sourcing a better board or a machine or a PC, or as I'm going to do with this one, I'm going with the Mr. FPGA board. I'm reordering it, but because my cousin just ordered his because he's looking for his Donkey Kong board. So in the interim, he's plugging in the FPGA board.
Nice. All right. So I have one last thing to share with you guys because Rex and Ralph, and I hope Rex is okay. I messaged him, so hopefully he'll come back soon. But Glen's Retro Show had something that he wanted to sneak peek and share everybody that he's working on. And it's this little guy. So sneak peek from Glen, who wanted to share. He's working on his own little miniature DK machine.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did he 3D print that?
He did. He 3D printed that. And I don't know if it's his own personal project that he's doing or if he's thinking about doing something else with it. But Glen is the king of retro.
Does it work?
What do you got?
It's like a working game?
I think so. Glen, are you in the chat? They can mention it, but I think so. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So if you're looking for a little miniature thing, was that what was it that you were seeing at CES? Was it a cab that looked like this, or was it something else?
Remember. I want to say it was like a DK. It was like a mini DK, like cocktail or something. It was in it was in their thing. It was running Donkey Kong on it. That's what. But it wasn't like it wasn't like this. It was, I think, a cocktail cabinet with Donkey Kong on it.
Yeah, well, that's
cool, man. That's really cool.
That's kind of cute. It's 3D printed, and yes, it works. So Glen wanted to show it off and share.
I figured it did, but
he wouldn't make it if it didn't work.
Yeah.
But
I sent you the video, by the way, of that other Donkey Kong. I think they still sell it on AliExpress or Alibaba, by the way. If someone, yeah, I think they still do.
Do I have to share this video because the intro just got me cracking up right now?
Well, don't share the intro because it's stupid. But
what are you talking about? The intro is the best part of the video.
It's so dumb.
Dags, asked Ralph a question because you said that you wanted to geek out and ask him something. So now that you're talking with RetroRalph, ask him something that you've always wanted to ask him while I download this video.
Oh wow!
Why did you even start doing Arcade1Up? Because you were retro to begin with.
Yeah, well,
and then your video switched to because I mean, yes, you modded it because you could. Like you did it because you can.
Yeah, honestly.
And then that kind of went a certain way. Then you're like, going back to.
I was collecting PCBs for a lot of years. I had like a whole closet filled with PCBs, and when I saw the Arcade1Up come out, I was like, it'd be really cool to just like geek out and put real hardware in an Arcade1Up. So it was kind of like a joke at first. And I told my buddy about it and he goes, dude, that people would watch that on YouTube, I bet. I'm like, no, they wouldn't. I go, people are not going to care. I was like, I actually told them this. I go, that's going to be a fly-by-night company, but in like 6 months, no one will care and they're going to be all on OfferUp or whatever. And I literally thought that for the longest time. And when my first video got like 1,000 views, which to me seemed like insane amount of views, I'm like, maybe people like actually dig this kind of. So I was motivated by the reaction of the community that didn't exist at the time. Really, it was Cool Toy and Toy Room. Those are the only two guys that were even talking about it, and Twisted Chris, I think, and that was it. And so I was like, all the people, I don't know. I was encouraged by, I think, the feedback that people were giving. So it just kind of fueled me.
It allowed Ralph to have an outlet to be crazy and do.
Well, you know what it is though. Like, okay, so the arcade community is really harsh. Okay, these guys, like the real arcade here in Canada. I'm fortunate to the group of gentlemen that I kind of spend my time, or used to collect games and trade games. Like they're the operators of the Southern Ontario kind of circuit, right? Like the last guy I just bought, I told you I had a twin was it Cruising USA, Twin Caps, and it came off location, and it's a friend of ours in the community. But I'm saying, but they're super harsh because they're purist. So when Arcade1Up came out, and I had built my Galaga, because it's my favorite game. I built the Galaga from scratch, brand new, full scale, everything to a T, other than obviously the seats. I used the LCD monitor. But when I did that, I was almost outcasted from the group. Like,
seriously,
because like, what are you doing? I said these are toys, they're garbage. I'm like, you know what? This is going to be one of two things. This is going to be something in history that almost ruined the arcade industry, which I want one, because it'll be like something in a museum that that almost killed the arcade community, or it's going to be something that boosts the arcade community. Because, and I'm saying this though now as a fanboy, so Ralph, because you became a big personality in our bubble community. Before you came on, Rexer said you're not celebrities. No, but a lot of the people, not just YouTubers, but people that are vocal in the groups, other people start to trust them. And we have our own little bubble. We have our own little, I think you said it before, like our own little defaulted reality about this stuff. But
yeah,
you bring trust. So you're able to bring, so you are somebody who's in the arcade, old classics. You adopted the Arcade1Up in a positive light. And then you were also harsh when it needed to be harsh, and like me talking about the truth. And then when you said, okay, this was fun, now I'm going back to my roots, and you're just showing, and then you're kind of showing that parallel to the jump is not that far anymore.
It's not.
You guys are going like, if they would just bought toys from Walmart, put them in their homes, and played them and walked away, you wouldn't have been able to talk to anybody at Convertible. But you saw what the community did. Like, obviously, you like went nuts on the modding. If you can start twisting wires and soldering, I'm sorry, you can do many things in a classic arcade cabinet. Just don't discharge it on your own. But other than that, everything is safe. You can't hurt yourself. You can always repair what you've damaged for the most part.
Yeah.
And if these guys are like soldering and like I said, they're doing all kinds of stuff, there's no reason. And they trust you guys, and you're kind of giving that bridge back too. So this is doing exactly what I thought was I was hoping was gonna happen. I thought was that Arcade1Up is just supporting and pushing the classic arcade industry, is bringing it back.
I agree.
To life.
Yeah.
It was dying.
It's like a second renaissance. They called I'm reading this book right now that when I'm tired, or when I can't sleep, I'll read it. And it's all about the history of arcades. And when Street Fighter 2 came out, they call that the renaissance of arcades, because all the fighting games saved the arcades in the 90s. Like, they stayed around. It was fighting games and beat 'em ups that saved the arcade community. That's true. Yeah. And this is like Renaissance 2, I feel like, because you can start here and you can be happy with that. Or if you're, like Kongs, I feel like you'd be one that this would resonate with. And you haven't said this, maybe I've missed it. The satisfaction of doing something yourself, that feeling you get of looking at something you built, is like awesome. I don't know. I love that feeling. It's like endorphin. Absolutely. Crazy. Yeah. And if you enjoy tinkering, then I think you can make the jump from an Arcade1Up mod to, hey, I'm going to buy my first real arcade and I'm going to try. Anybody can really do it. Truly. The only scary part is the CRT is kind of scary, but once you get over that hump, you just watch a million videos of people doing it. You're like, okay, I can do this now.
Yeah, they all lived. You can do it.
RetroRalph can do it.
I'm going to say it now. I'm going to say right now, B's not going down the classic arcade route. B's going down the pinhead route, and that's like,
dude, you're going in a slippery slope. He's
going down
that pinball thing, dude.
It's expensive, but I'm addicted.
It's so expensive.
You know that I had my pinball and I sold it. I had that for 22 years.
Wow.
You want to know how much money I put into it? Like, meaning, and I did most of my own work. Like,
maintenance-wise?
Just maintaining it. Just every time rewaxing the playfield and changing the capacitors and all the bumpers, and like, it's just nonstop. It's nonstop because it's a mechanical device. Everything's rubbing all the time. Everything's moving.
Oh, you're making me.
So I'm just saying. I want to make one more point that Dags brought up real quick. One more point that Dags brought up. He said the arcade community can be rough sometimes. The real, so the original guy. So the one thing I didn't realize, and now it makes sense. So I walked into a really big S storm with Clav. So Clav is basically that's a restoration community. So the reason why they hate anything that isn't original is because in their mind they're kind of like, I don't know if they have this on the West Coast, but on the East Coast, like let's say you're in an older community, the historical society will have ownership of a building, and they'll make sure that like you can't go in and be like, yeah, I'm going to put brand new windows on that window right there. They'll be like, oh hell no, that's from the 1800s. You're going to preserve the window the way it's supposed to be. That's how they are. So understanding why they react the way they do, they view it as it has to be original. That's it. And if you can't do it, then don't get into the hobby. Like that's their philosophy. So I didn't really know that. And I shared something on there like, hey, I did this and replaced this and this. They're like, yeah, that's cool. We're going to crucify you on these comments now. And it was like, like, you suck. You're crazy. This is terrible. How could you do this? You defaced this arcade. So just know when that part of the community can be very harsh, because in their mind, we need to preserve the classics, not hack them up. So that's kind of their mindset. So I didn't realize that was a preservation community at first. So I had a little rude awakening on a couple things that I had done in the past.
Yeah, don't ever put green team molding on a Gallagher. I got torn up. I was finally accepted for building the original because I stayed so true to it. And then they said, we're accepting you. Now you're dead to us. It's like that was it.
But there's a level of the purists and those that want to share the hobby, and you get to a point like VPN is almost getting to that point where there was such a hardcore fan base, and the new ALP Legends Pinball and Arcade1Up has brought so many people into that VPN community. So I understand the want and feel to keep a community niche and true to its form. And as the new people come in, you'll get people that dive into it, understand it, and want to. And then there'll be people that are just too surface level and try to break so there's that balance between where you get to. So I'm learning that and trying to respect everything that's been there. And that's been my approach. And Dags even tells this to me early on when I invited him onto the show, is I still feel like a regular community member that's learning and doing this. And RetroRalph, I feel like this at the same way. At your core, even though you've done YouTube and things, we're all still hobbyists that are helping each other.
Totally.
At our core.
It's always learning.
And
There's
so
no one that knows everything. There's no one that knows everything.
And so we're all at an equal level. Everybody here in the chat that has been talking about how awesome this is and sharing the hobby. I encourage you all to think about this conversation is just a springboard, and this is going to be something that I'm going to do. I'm going to watch RetroRalph's video now because if I don't have a Kong costume like this, I probably need to get one.
This is royalty free, by the way, this music, so you're good.
So I'm sure you would do that for me. I just had to end the show on that. That's amazing. So that's the RetroRalph intro to his Donkey Kong previous cab that I saw, but appreciate that. Anything else you guys want to mention before we end the show? Rex didn't come back. I took him off the stream. I hope he's okay. But please check out the Rexer show when you can. I hope he comes back and does YouTube fully. But Dags, any last things you want to mention before we sign off?
No, I just want to say, like, everybody knows me on the Canadian Arcade Facebook group, and obviously everybody's aware of what I've done, and I'm always about sharing that experience and helping anybody out that wants to make their dreams come true. Because just like the purist, I am still into ensuring that the nostalgia of this industry stays alive. Awesome. Not doing it one cabinet at a time like he is. I'm too old for that. I'm on the other side. But I will never let a classic cabinet go to waste. I'll tell you that much.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Dags. Check him out on the Canadian Facebook group. He's really active, Alan Dags. And I'm sure he might bring him on a third time, because one of my future episodes I really wanted to do was to bring anybody who's ever finished building a Star Wars cockpit cabinet and bring them all onto the same show. And I've been working with several of them, and Dags has one of the most awesome ones. So I'm talking to at least 3 others. And when they're all done, Dags, you're going to come back on for a third time. But Ralph, anything you want to mention before we end the show?
I think you know what's really interesting is and I think this exists in both communities. I think that whether you're modding Arcade1Ups or you're restoring original arcade games, the community is like super helpful. Like if you're looking for a part or you don't know where to go for information. So I just feel like if there's anything that's like really extremely positive is, I think everyone gets so into it that they want to help see each other's projects to completion. And so that's a real thing. Like, don't be afraid to ask for help, because there are places where I'll say, hey, I'm looking for this. And all of a sudden there's like 3 people that go, oh, I either have that or know someone that does. So and the same thing with Arcade1Up, modding. The people, that really love like Raspberry Pi. So they're like, oh yeah, there's this build over here that looks like a Play Choice 10. You'll totally dig this. And all of a sudden, they share the images, whatever. All things aside, there's issues there sometimes, but whatever, just let's not talk about that. But yeah. So I don't know. I've gotten a lot more loose, I think, on that, because to me, did you guys ever see, I want to say it was like Retro RGB, and they were interviewing a bunch of people about how they feel like Pi builds, what their purpose is for the community. And a lot of people were like, they were going down the preservation route. And I can definitely get behind that, where there are certain games you just can't, like maybe they never dumped the ROMs. And so like that's the only way you can play it, or the boards are hard to get, or whatever it is. So yeah, no, nothing else really to add, because I'll just keep talking, but I appreciate being on a show like this. It's cool to be a guest on someone else's show. And I dig like these, like what you're doing here, because you kind of tug on my heartstrings, because a lot of what you do is like the custom build stuff. So I think that's cool. And you've gone light years beyond. Like when I see you're at Games Legends Pinball, I'm like, dude, I don't even, there's no room left. Like you have every bell and whistle in that damn thing. That's really cool. So yeah, you can go from here to anywhere you want with this hobby. So it's just awesome. Thanks. And everyone's really neat. So
yeah, I appreciate that. And coming on and talking about things that you're passionate about, we continue to learn from each other. So I'm inspired by each of you guys. And I still know that I have to work on my virtual one, because I got to get the pink side working on. I have a Lethal Enforcers cab that I need to get recapped or something, because the image is off. At some point, I'm sure I'll be picking your brain. And,
I have a Lethal Enforcers board, by the way. If it ends up being a board issue, I have an extra board. So.
Great. And then I have a Star Wars Racer dud that I need to do something with. But my garage Kate is just not working right now. But I'm almost done with VPN, and then I can move on to that. So soon I think I might take the jump, but shows like this really help encourage me. So I appreciate that. And by the way, Rex looks like he had a family emergency, so we wish him well. So send your well wishes to Rex in the chat as well as here. But I appreciate both of you guys for being on the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for taking it to the next level. We'll see you next time. Bye.
See you guys. Thanks
everyone.